The Valkyrie Empire had ruled the stars for 10,000 years. They had conquered 37 species across the galaxy, and not one of them had ever managed to scratch their warships. The secret was simple. The Valkyrie built their ships with layers and layers of crystalline armor. This armor could stop plasma weapons. It could stop laser beams. It could survive nuclear explosions. Nothing in the known galaxy could break through it. Admiral Vexna stood on the command deck of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion. He was old for a Valkyrie, with deep purple skin and 4 eyes that had seen countless worlds burn. Behind him, 200 warships waited in formation. Each one was covered in thick armor plates that gleamed like black glass. "Show me this planet again," Vexna said to his science officer. A hologram appeared in the air. It showed a small blue world with white clouds and green land. The third planet from a yellow star. The natives called it Earth. "They have only been in space for 200 years, the science officer reported. "They have colonies on their moon and on the red planet nearby. Their technology is primitive compared to ours." Vexna made a clicking sound with his teeth. This was how his species laughed. "And their weapons? They use kinetic systems, Admiral. They call them Railguns. They use magnetic fields to throw metal projectiles. They throw rocks," Vexna said. "Like children." The science officer nodded. "Our analysts have studied their weapon designs. Their fastest projectiles travel at perhaps 15 kilometers per second. Our standard armor can absorb such impacts without any damage." Vexna turned to look at his fleet through the viewing window. 200 ships. Enough firepower to crack a planet in half. And they were going to use all of it against creatures who threw rocks. "Begin the approach," he ordered. "We will add these humans to our empire before the day ends." Far away, on the other side of the solar system, Commander Katie Brooks received the alert she had been dreading her whole career. She was standing on the bridge of the USS Defiant, Earth's newest and most powerful orbital defense ship. She was 34 years old, with short brown hair and green eyes that never seemed to rest. "Ma'am," said Lieutenant Danny Marsh from the sensor station. He was young, maybe 25, with nervous hands that moved too fast across his controls. "We have multiple contacts entering the system. Over 200 of them." Katie walked to his station and looked at the display. The alien ships appeared as red dots, moving slowly toward Earth. Each dot was huge, much bigger than anything humans had ever built. "How long until they reach Earth orbit?" she asked. "At their current speed, about 6 hours." Katie nodded. She had trained for this moment. Every officer in the fleet had trained for this moment. First contact with alien life. Except this did not look like a friendly visit. "Get me Admiral Price at Fleet Command," she said, "and tell all stations to go to battle alert." The lights on the bridge changed from white to red. Alarms began to sound throughout the ship. Crew members ran to their positions. The Defiant's reactor hummed louder as it powered up to full capacity. Admiral Price's face appeared on the main screen. He was an older man with gray hair and a calm voice. He had commanded Earth's defense fleet for 15 years, and he had never lost his cool. "Not once. Commander Brooks," he said. "I assume you've seen our visitors." "Yes, sir." "What are your orders?" "All ships are to hold position in Earth orbit. Do not advance. Do not retreat. Let them come to us." Price paused for a moment. "And spin up your main guns. If they want to fight, we'll give them one they won't forget." The communication ended. Katie turned to her weapons officer, a young man named Pete Collins. He had freckles and red hair, and he looked like he should be playing video games, not controlling weapons that could crack mountains. "You heard the Admiral," Katie said. "Power up everything we have." Pete's fingers danced across his controls. Deep in the belly of the ship, massive capacitors began to charge. The Defiant carried 12 railgun batteries on its sides, but its main weapon was something special. A single gun that ran through the center of the entire ship. 30 meters of superconducting rails, cooled to temperatures colder than deep space. This gun could fire a 2-ton slug of tungsten at 100 kilometers per second. At that speed, a piece of metal became something terrifying. It carried more energy than a small nuclear bomb. And unlike a bomb, it could not be stopped by shields or armor. It was just physics. Mass times velocity squared. The Valkyrie did not understand this. They had studied human weapons and dismissed them. They thought they knew what kinetic weapons could do. They were wrong. Hours passed. The alien fleet grew closer. Katie watched them on the sensors, counting the ships, measuring their size. The smallest ones were twice as big as the Defiant. The largest ones were like small moons, covered in armor plates that had to be meters thick. "They're broadcasting something," Danny said. I think it's a surrender demand." The message played on the bridge speakers. It was in broken English, clearly translated by a machine. "Creatures of Earth, you are now property of the Valkyrie Empire. Surrender your planet and your ships. You will serve us as slaves. If you resist, you will be destroyed. You have 1 hour to respond." The bridge was silent. Katie looked at her crew. They were scared. She could see it in their eyes. But they were also angry. Humans did not like being told what to do. They especially did not like being called slaves. "Send our response," Katie said. "What should I say, ma'am?" The communications officer asked. Katie thought for a moment. Then she smiled. It was not a friendly smile. "Tell them this. You can take your surrender demand and shove it. If you want Earth, come and take it." She turned back to the viewing window. The stars looked the same as always. Peaceful, quiet. That was about to change. "All hands," she announced over the ship's speakers. "This is Commander Brooks. In a few hours, we're going to be in the fight of our lives. I won't lie to you. Those ships out there are big and scary, but they've never met humans before. They don't know what we can do. So let's show them." She looked at Pete Collins, who sat ready at his weapon station. His hands were steady now. The nervousness was gone. "They armored their ships," Katie said quietly. "Let's turn them into debris." Admiral Vexner received the human response and felt his blood grow hot with anger. In 10,000 years of conquest, no species had ever spoken to the Valkyrie this way. They always surrendered. They always begged for mercy. These humans were either very brave or very stupid. "Increase speed," he ordered. "I want to reach their planet within 2 hours. And prepare all weapons. We will burn their cities until nothing remains." His fleet moved forward like a wall of black metal. The ships flew in perfect formation, armor plates catching the light of the distant sun. Each ship carried enough firepower to destroy a continent. Together, they could turn Earth into a ball of fire and ash on the Eternal Dominion. The weapon masters prepared for battle. They charged the plasma cannons. They loaded the fusion missiles. They powered up the laser batteries that could cut through mountains. The Valkyrie had weapons for every situation. They had fought and won against species with advanced technology. They had crushed enemies who built ships made of pure energy. They had defeated machines that could think faster than any living mind. None of it had ever mattered as much as their armor. The armor was their greatest strength. 300 years ago, the Valkyrie scientists had discovered how to grow crystals in zero gravity. These crystals could be layered and bonded together to create plates harder than diamond. Heat from plasma weapons would spread across the surface and dissipate. Laser beams would scatter and reflect. Physical impacts would be absorbed by the crystal structure. Every Valkyrie ship was wrapped in this armor. The thicker the armor, the stronger the ship. The flagship Eternal Dominion had armor plates that were 12 meters thick in some places. No weapon in the known galaxy could punch through that much crystal. "Admiral," the tactical officer reported, "the human fleet is not moving. They are holding position around their planet." Dexner clicked his teeth again. Cowards. They hope their planet's gravity will protect them. It will not. But deep in his four-eyed stare, there was something else. Not fear exactly. More like curiosity. Why were the humans not running? Why were they not trying to escape? Every other species would have fled by now. They would have scattered their ships and hoped to survive long enough to surrender. The humans just sat there, waiting. Back on the Defiant, Katie Brooks was calm. She had eaten a small meal in her ready room. She had written a letter to her parents, just in case. She had checked her crew one more time. Everyone was at their station. Everyone knew their job. Distance to enemy fleet? She asked. 100,000 kilometers in closing, Danny Marsh reported. They'll be in optimal range in about 20 minutes. Katie nodded. Optimal range. That was the key. Human railguns could technically hit targets at any distance. In space, there was no air resistance. A projectile would fly forever in a straight line. But at extreme distances, even tiny errors in aim would cause the shot to miss. The target might move. The gun might vibrate. The slug might tumble. At 10,000 kilometers, a good weapons officer could hit a target the size of a house. And Pete Collins was better than good. He was the best gunner in the fleet. Remember your training, Katie told her crew. One shot, one kill. Don't waste ammunition. Pick your targets and make them count. She looked at the tactical display. The Earth Defense Fleet was much smaller than the alien armada. 32 ships in total. Most of them were destroyers and cruisers, armed with medium railguns. Only 5 ships carried the heavy guns. The Defiant was one of them. "Admiral Price is broadcasting," the communications officer said. The Admiral's voice came through clear and strong. "All ships, this is Fleet Command. Hold your fire until the enemy reaches 10,000 kilometers. Then fire at will. Aim for center mass. Don't get fancy. Just hit them hard and fast." The minutes crawled by. Katie watched the red dots on her display grow closer and closer. She could see individual ships now through the enhanced cameras. They were ugly things, covered in black crystal that looked like diseased skin. They bristled with weapons she didn't recognize. They moved with the confidence of predators who had never known defeat. 50,000 kilometers, Danny announced. The alien fleet began to spread out. They were taking attack formation. Their weapons powered up, glowing with energy that made the sensors flicker. 40,000. Katie could feel her heart beating. Her hands were steady, but inside she was terrified. These aliens had conquered 37 species. What made humanity think they could do any better? 30,000. The first alien ship fired. A beam of green plasma crossed the void and struck one of the human destroyers. The smaller ship's shields flared and held. The plasma spread across the surface and faded. "Shields holding on the Newport," Danny reported. "Minor damage only." Katie let out a breath she didn't know she was holding. The plasma weapons were hot, but they lost energy quickly over distance. At 30,000 kilometers, they couldn't deliver a killing blow. 20,000. More plasma beams filled the space between the fleets. Human ships began to take damage. One destroyer lost its main antenna. A cruiser reported fires on 3 decks. But no ships were destroyed. Not yet. 15,000. Katie's fingers tightened on her armrest. Almost there. Just a little closer. 10,000 kilometers. We are in optimal range. She stood up from her chair. Every eye on the bridge turned to her. "All ships," she said into the fleet channel. "Fire at will." Pete Collins pressed his firing button. The Defiant shuddered as its main gun released 30 years of human engineering in a single shot. The tungsten slug left the barrel so fast that it seemed to disappear. There was no visible trail, no dramatic streak of light. Just a tiny distortion in space as 2 tons of metal traveled at 100 kilometers per second. The slug crossed 10,000 kilometers in 1/10 of a second. It struck the lead Valkyrie cruiser dead center. What happened next was something the Valkyrie had never seen before. Their crystal armor was designed to spread and absorb energy. But this was not energy in the way they understood it. This was pure kinetic force, concentrated in a space smaller than a dinner plate, delivered faster than anything they had ever faced. The slug did not bounce off. It did not penetrate. It did something much worse. It transferred all of its kinetic energy into the crystal armor in a single instant. The armor superheated. The crystal structure shattered. The metal beneath it vaporized. A hole appeared in the front of the cruiser, and a hole appeared in the back. In between, there was nothing but fire and death. The cruiser broke apart in a cloud of plasma and debris. 1,000 Valkyrie crew members died before they even understood what had happened. Admiral Dexner stared at his display in shock. He had never seen a ship die so quickly. He had never seen armor fail so completely. And then the rest of the human fleet opened fire. The space around Earth turned into a storm of fire and metal. Human railguns spoke again and again, sending tungsten death across the void. Each shot was a thunderbolt of pure physics. Each impact was a small sun blooming against black crystal armor. Admiral Dexner gripped his command chair as another ship died on his display. Then another. Then 3 more at once. His fleet was being torn apart, and he could not understand why. "Return fire!" he screamed at his officers. "All weapons maximum power. Destroy them." The Valkyrie fleet unleashed everything they had. Plasma beams crisscrossed the battlefield. Fusion missiles streaked toward the human ships. Laser batteries fired in continuous waves, trying to cut through the enemy hulls. Some shots hit home. A human destroyer took a missile to its engine and began to drift, trailing smoke and fire. A cruiser lost its forward section to a concentrated plasma barrage. But the humans did not stop firing. If anything, they fired faster. On the Defiant, Katie Brooks watched the battle unfold with grim satisfaction. The plan was working. The aliens were big and scary, but they were also slow. Their heavy armor made them easy targets. And their weapons, while powerful, were designed for different kinds of enemies. "Target the ship at bearing 270, she ordered. "The big one with the extra armor plates." "Targeting," Pete Collins said. His voice was calm, almost bored. He had fired 6 shots already. 6 shots, 6 kills. He was not thinking about the thousands of aliens dying in each explosion. He could not afford to think about that. Right now, he was just doing math. Distance, velocity, lead time. The main gun fired again. The ship shook. The lights flickered for just a moment as the capacitors recharged. 10,000 kilometers away, another Valkyrie cruiser died. The aliens were panicking now. Dexner could see it in the way his fleet was moving. Ships were breaking formation, trying to dodge the invisible death that came from the human guns. But you cannot dodge what you cannot see. The tungsten slugs moved too fast for any sensor to track. By the time you saw the impact, it was already too late. "Admiral," his tactical officer shouted, "we need to retreat. We cannot fight these weapons. No." Dexner slammed his fist against his chair. "We do not retreat. We are the Valkyrie. We have conquered the galaxy. The galaxy did not have railguns. It was true. In all their conquests, the Valkyrie had never faced an enemy that used kinetic weapons so effectively. Other species had tried similar technology, but they always gave up when their projectiles bounced off Valkyrie armor. They switched to energy weapons instead, hoping to find a weakness. Humans did not give up. When they saw a problem, they did not look for another solution. They simply hit the problem harder until it went away. The railguns that fired on the Valkyrie fleet were the result of 200 years of stubborn engineering. Humans had taken a simple idea and pushed it to its absolute limit. Bigger guns, faster projectiles, heavier slugs. They had built weapons that turned basic physics into a death sentence at 100 kilometers per second. A 2-ton tungsten slug carried the same energy as a tactical nuclear weapon. But unlike a nuke, all that energy was focused on a single point. It did not spread out in a blast wave. It did not waste itself heating the air. Every single joule went directly into the target. Crystal armor meant nothing against such force. The atoms in the armor simply did not have time to react. The energy transfer happened faster than the speed of sound in the material. By the time the armor tried to spread the impact, it was already gone, replaced by a tunnel of superheated plasma. 1 hour into the battle, the Valkyrie had lost 50 ships. 2 hours in, they had lost 100. The human fleet had lost only 8. "We need to adapt," Dexter shouted. "Increase armor on the forward sections. Make the plates thicker." His engineers worked frantically. They used emergency forges to create new armor plates. They welded them onto the front of the surviving ships. Some ships now had armor 20 meters thick on their bow. Katie Brooks watched this on her sensors and shook her head. The aliens still did not understand. "They're adding more armor," Denny Marsh reported. "I can see that," Katie said. "It won't help." "But ma'am, if their armor is thicker, Danny, what happens when you double the armor thickness?" The young lieutenant thought about it. The kinetic energy needed to penetrate doubles? Close. It increases, but not by as much as you'd think. The key is that our slugs are moving so fast that the armor can't distribute the force. It doesn't matter if the wall is 1 meter thick or 20 meters thick. If you hit it hard enough, fast enough, it shatters. It's like dropping a hammer on an egg versus dropping a hammer on a bigger egg. Danny nodded slowly. "The egg still breaks." "The egg still breaks," Katie agreed. She gave the order to concentrate fire on the newly armored ships. 10 minutes later, they were all debris. The extra armor had only made them slower, easier targets. By the 3rd hour, the Valkyrie fleet was broken. Ships were fleeing in all directions, abandoning formation, abandoning each other. The humans pursued them with patient precision. Every fleeing ship was another target. Every turn back was an opportunity. Admiral Dexter watched his empire's pride burn. His flagship was damaged but still moving. His crew was terrified but still following orders. He had 100 ships left from a fleet of 200. "Set course for the edge of the system," he ordered quietly. "We are leaving. Admiral, if we leave, the High Command can judge me when I return with information about these weapons. If we all die here, no one will know how to fight them. We must survive. We must warn the Empire." The remaining Valkyrie ships began to retreat. They turned their armored bows toward the humans, trying to protect their engines. They flew as fast as their damaged systems would allow, but the humans were not finished with them yet. "They're running," Pete Collins said. There was no joy in his voice, just exhaustion. Katie stood up from her chair. Her back ached from sitting so long. Her eyes burned from staring at displays. But she was not going to let these invaders escape without one more lesson. "All ships pursue," she ordered. "Do not let them leave our system." The human fleet surged forward, following the fleeing aliens into the darkness of deep space. The chase lasted for 6 more hours. Valkyrie ships died one by one as human railguns picked them off from behind. The aliens tried everything they could think of. They dropped mines in their wake. The humans shot the mines. They launched missiles backward. The humans shot the missiles. They released clouds of debris hoping to confuse the sensors. The humans flew right through it and kept shooting dot by the time the sun of Earth was just another star in the distance. Only 30 Valkyrie ships remained. Admiral Dexner's flagship was among them, but barely. The Eternal Dominion had taken 2 glancing hits. Its port side was a ruin of melted armor and exposed corridors. 3,000 crew members were dead. The survivors worked desperately to keep the ship moving. "Admiral, the humans are gaining on us," the tactical officer reported. His voice shook with fear. "We cannot outrun them." Dexner closed his 4 eyes for a moment. He thought about his career, his conquests, his victories. He had burned worlds. He had enslaved millions. He had never once considered that he might lose. "How many of their ships are following us?" he asked. 24, sir. The rest stayed behind to guard their planet. 24 human ships against 30 Valkyrie survivors. The math was not in the aliens' favor. The humans had better weapons, better accuracy, and they were not slowed down by heavy armor. "Open a channel to all ships," Dexner ordered. "Tell them to turn and fight. We will make our stand here." His officers looked at him with surprise. Fight? With what? Their weapons could barely scratch the human ships. Their armor was useless. What could they possibly do? "Admiral, with respect, that is suicide," the tactical officer said. "Perhaps, but I will not die running. I am Valkyrie. I am the conqueror of 37 worlds. If this is my end, I will face it with honor." The remaining Valkyrie ships slowed and turned. They formed a rough circle, weapons pointed outward in all directions. It was a formation of desperation, not strategy. They had no plan. They just wanted to die fighting. On the Defiant, Katie Brooks saw the alien formation change. She frowned at her display, trying to understand what they were doing. "They've stopped running," Danny Marsh said. "They're turning to fight. All ships, hold position," Katie ordered. "Do not approach. Let them make the first move." The 2 fleets faced each other across 10,000 kilometers of empty space. For a long moment, nothing happened. The stars watched in silence. The void held its breath. Then Admiral Dexner opened a communication channel. His face appeared on the main screen of every human ship. He was old and tired and wounded. Purple blood leaked from a cut on his forehead, but his eyes still burned with pride. "Human Commander," he said. His translator made his voice sound mechanical and strange. "You have defeated us. I did not think it was possible. For 10,000 years, no species has broken our armor. Today, you have shown me that I was wrong." Katie stood up and faced the screen. She could have ignored him. She could have simply given the order to fire and end the battle. But something in his voice made her pause. "You came to our world to enslave us," she said. "You called us primitive. You said we threw rocks." Dexner made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Yes, and now I understand that rocks, thrown hard enough, can break anything. Your species is not primitive. Your species is terrifying. So what now? Do you surrender?" The alien admiral was silent for a long moment. Around him, his crew watched with wide eyes. They had never seen him hesitate before. They had never seen him anything but confident. "I do not know if I can surrender," Dexner finally said. "I do not know the word. In my language, there is no such concept. The Valkyrie do not yield. We win or we die." Katie thought about this. She thought about all the species this empire had crushed, all the worlds they had burned, all the people they had enslaved. Did they deserve mercy? Did they deserve anything except death? But she also thought about what humanity could become. If they started their journey into the stars with genocide, what would that make them? What kind of legacy would that be? Then learn the word, she said. Surrender means you stop fighting. You put down your weapons. You accept that you lost. And in exchange, you get to live. Live as slaves? Live as prisoners. We don't keep slaves. That's not who we are. Dexner stared at her through the screen. He was trying to understand. In his entire life, he had never met a species that showed mercy to a defeated enemy. The Valkyries certainly never did. When they won, they took everything. They broke their enemies completely. You would let us live? He asked. After we tried to destroy you? You tried and failed, Katie said simply. That's over now. The question is, what happens next? You can die here, fighting a battle you cannot win. Or you can surrender and maybe, someday, help us understand your empire. Help us make sure this never happens again. The bridge of the Eternal Dominion was completely silent. Every Valkyrie was watching their admiral, waiting to see what he would do. For the first time in 10,000 years, the choice was not obvious. Vexna turned to his crew. He looked at the fear in their eyes. He looked at the damage surrounding them. He thought about all the others who had already died. Then he turned back to the screen. Commander, he said slowly, testing each word as if it might burn his mouth. I surrender. My ship surrender. Tell me what to do. Katie let out a breath she had been holding for what felt like years. Her crew stared at her in shock. They had expected a last battle, a final explosion of violence. Not this. Power down your weapons, Katie said. Turn off your engines. Prepare to be boarded. And Admiral? Yes? Welcome to the new galaxy. Things are different here. The Valkyrie ships went dark. Their weapons fell silent. Their engines stopped. For the first time in 10,000 years, the mighty conquerors waited helplessly while someone else decided their fate. And far away, on the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, Admiral Dexner sat down in his chair and tried to understand what had just happened. He had been defeated by creatures who threw rocks. He had surrendered to an enemy who showed mercy. The universe, he realized, was much stranger than he had ever imagined. 6 months passed after the battle for Earth. News traveled slowly across the galaxy, but eventually, everyone heard what had happened. The Valkyrie Empire, undefeated for 10,000 years, had been broken by a species that had barely left its own solar system. The other civilizations could not believe it at first. The Sethrani, a race of tall beings with silver skin and gentle voices, had been slaves of the Valkyrie for 300 years. When they heard the news, they wept with joy. The Koroth, a species of small furry creatures who had lost their homeworld to Valkyrie conquest, immediately began planning their rebellion. The Minari, ancient beings of living light who had been hunted nearly to extinction, emerged from hiding for the first time in centuries. All of them wanted to know the same thing. How have the humans done it? The answer spread like fire through dry grass. Railguns. Simple, brutal, kinetic weapons. Metal thrown so fast that nothing could stop it. The Valkyrie had armored their ships with crystal plates meters thick. The humans had simply hit those plates harder than anything had ever hit them before. On Earth, Katie Brooks was promoted to captain and given command of a new ship. But she did not receive one of the human vessels. Instead, she was given the captured Eternal Dominion, renamed the USS Remember. It was a symbol of victory, but also of change. The ship's crew was a mix of humans and former Valkyrie, prisoners who had chosen to defect, rather than return to their fallen empire. Admiral Dexner was kept uncomfortable. custody on Earth. He spent his days talking to human scientists and historians, explaining the Velkari way of war. He was not mistreated. He was given good food and a nice room with a view of the mountains. It confused him more than any torture would have. "Why do you treat me this way?" he asked one day. His human guard, a young woman named Lisa, had brought him a cup of tea. "I tried to enslave your species. I would have killed billions of your people." Lisa shrugged. "You lost. War's over. What's the point of being cruel now?" Vexna had no answer for that. His species had always been cruel to the defeated. It was how they maintained control. Fear and pain and suffering. But the humans did not seem to need those things. They had won through sheer force, and now they were building something different. 3 months after the battle, the first alien delegation arrived at Earth. They came in small ships, barely armed, flying white flags that meant peace in a dozen different languages. The Zethrani, the Koroth, the Minari, and others, species whose names humans had never heard before. They met with Admiral Price in Geneva, in a conference room overlooking the lake. Katie was there as well, standing at the Admiral's side. She had become something of a hero, though she did not like the attention. "We have come to ask for your help," the Sethrani ambassador said. Her name was Vela, and she spoke with a voice like singing bells. "The Velkari Empire is collapsing. Their fleet was their power, and you destroyed it. Now their subject species are rising up. There is chaos across 1,000 worlds." Admiral Price nodded slowly. He was older now, more tired. The battle had taken something out of him. But his eyes were still sharp. "What kind of help do you need?" he asked. "Your weapons," Vela said. "Your railguns. We wish to learn how to build them. With such weapons, we could defend ourselves against anyone who tries to conquer us again." The room fell silent. This was the question everyone had been waiting for. Would humanity share its greatest weapon? Would they give other species the power to defend themselves? Or would they keep the technology secret, maintaining their advantage? Katie watched the Admiral's face. She knew what she would do. She hoped he felt the same way. "We will share the technology," Admiral Price said finally. "But understand something. This is not about revenge. The Velkari hurt you, and I know you want to hurt them back. But if we start down that road, we become just like them. We become conquerors." Vela bowed her head. "What do you suggest?" "We suggest building something new. A defense alliance. All species working together to protect each other. No more empires. No more conquest. Just free people, defending their freedom." It was a grand idea. Maybe too grand. The galaxy was big and old and full of anger. There were species out there who would never forgive the Velkari. There were wounds that might never heal, but it was a start. Over the next few years, humanity taught the other species how to build railguns. The technology spread across the galaxy like a wave. Soon, even the smallest civilizations had weapons that could punch through any armor. The age of conquest was over. No empire could survive when every enemy could shoot back. The Velkari Empire officially dissolved 8 months after the battle for Earth. Their home world became just another planet, no more powerful than any other. Some of their people adapted to the new reality. Others could not accept it. There were scattered battles, rebellions, acts of terrorism. But the old power was gone forever. Katie Brooks spent the next 5 years patrolling the old Velkari trade routes in the USS Remember. Her crew grew and changed. Humans worked alongside Sethrani and Koroth, and even a few reformed Velkari. They protected merchants. They stopped pirates. They helped refugees find new homes. One day, Danny Marsh came to her bridge with a familiar message. "Captain, we're receiving a distress signal." Civilian freighter under attack by raiders. Katie smiled. Some things never changed. Set an intercept course, she ordered, and warm up the main gun. The Remember turned toward the signal, its engines glowing bright against the stars. Somewhere out there, someone needed help. And humanity, as always, was ready to throw rocks at the problem dot as her ship flew into the darkness. Katie thought about how far they had come. A few years ago, humans had never met an alien. Now, they were the guardians of a free galaxy. They had earned that position not through cruelty or conquest, but through simple physics and stubborn engineering. The Valkyrie had armored their ships. Human railguns had turned them into debris. And in the wreckage of that old empire, something new was growing. Something better. The stars stretched out before her, full of possibilities, full of challenges, full of problems that needed solving. Katie settled back in her chair and watched. The universe roll by. Physics doesn't care about your armor, she thought. And neither do we. The end.